Commander Mira Hale stood on the edge of the landing platform and looked up at the towering spires of Azura Prime's royal citadel. She pulled her dark hair into a tight bun and took a steady breath. Around her, human diplomats adjusted their uniforms and whispered hopes of peace. Mira held her chin high. She knew Earth's future depended on this visit. The starship's hatch closed behind them with a hiss. Soft light from the citadel's crystal walls bathed the platform in blue and green. Alien guards in gleaming armor stood at attention, their faces unreadable beneath tall helms. They held long spears that glinted in the light. Mira felt her pulse quicken, but she did not step back. Mira led the small human delegation forward. Each step echoed on the polished stone. She carried a simple wooden box filled with Earth's finest spices and metals. Inside was a ceremonial amulet, carved from Jupiter's moon rock. It was meant to show respect and friendship. As the group passed under the grand archway, human and Azuran translators repeated formal greetings. "We come in peace," they said, voices calm but steady. Mira imagined her own voice rising in her throat. She forced it down and kept walking. Tall columns of clear crystal rose on both sides, lined with softly glowing symbols. The symbols shifted and changed shape, telling stories of Azura's ancient past. Mira had studied those stories for months. She felt a thrill to see them in real life. At the center of the great hall, a dais of polished white stone waited for the queen. Around it sat Azuran nobles in fine robes. They watched the humans with silent interest. None spoke. None moved. The tension in the air was like a held breath. Mira stepped onto the dais and bowed her head, following Earth's own protocol for greeting a ruler. She placed the wooden box at the queen's feet and extended the amulet on her palm. The amulet caught the light and cast tiny rainbows on the crystal floor. Suddenly, the amulet slipped from Mira's fingers. Time seemed to slow. She lunged forward to catch it. Her hand brushed against the queen's slender glove. A flash of shock passed through Mira's mind. Around them, the court fell completely silent. Human translators halted mid-sentence. Azuran nobles leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the two figures at the center of the hall. Mira froze, her heart pounding as she realized the mistake. She had broken no human rule, but here, in Azuran culture, that touch carried a weight she did not yet understand. She blinked and looked up at the queen, whose jeweled eyes met hers with quiet curiosity. Mira's chest tightened. She tried to pull back, but her hand still rested against the queen's. In that moment, a single thought ran through Mira's mind. She had come to make friends, and now she might have changed history forever. Commander Mira Hale stood frozen as the great hall fell into perfect silence. The crystal walls, filled with ancient stories, seemed to hold their breath. All eyes were on Mira and the silent queen. Her hand still brushed the queen's glove, and Mira's heart pounded like a drum. A slow murmur began among the Azuran nobles. One by one, their jeweled eyes widened. A human translator cleared his throat and tried to speak, but the words came out as a surprised whisper. This is a proposal." His voice trembled. Mira's face burned. She pulled her hand back as if burned by cold fire. But Queen Azura did not seem angry. Instead, she rose from her throne with graceful steps. The guards straightened. The flickering light on the walls danced across her silvery robes. Queen Azura's voice rang clear and calm. "I accept," she said. Her words echoed through the hall like music. "I accept your proposal." Gasps burst from the assembled crowd. Human ambassadors stared at each other, mouths open. One diplomat hurried to whisper in Mira's ear, "Your Highness." She accepted. Mira bowed again, deeper this time, though she did not understand exactly what she had proposed. She tried to steady her voice. "Your Majesty," she said, I did not know. I came only to deliver peace gifts." The queen held up a hand, and the noise faded. She stepped down from the dais and approached Mira. Each of her steps made the crystal floor chime softly. When she stood before Mira, she reached out and gently took Mira's hand. The gesture was kind, not cold. "Commander Hale," Queen Azura said, "your gift was more than spices and metals. It was a promise of friendship. In our world, that promise is made by touch." She smiled, soft and genuine. "By your touch, you have bound our peoples." Mira's breath caught. She looked around at the humans and Azurans. Some nobles murmured among themselves, their robes rustling. The human translators worked quickly, converting every word into Earth languages. Outside the hall, a peaceful anthem played, a signal that the diplomatic mission had succeeded beyond all hope. The orchestra rose in gentle chords, blending human and Azuran instruments. Mira allowed herself a small smile. She lifted her head. "Then let us build our future together," she said, her voice steady now. Queen Azura nodded, her eyes bright. She gave Mira's hand a light squeeze before letting go. The queen turned to face her court. "Let this day mark a new alliance," she announced. "Let Earth and Azura Prime walk as one." Cheers erupted, soft at first, then strong. Human diplomats exchanged relieved looks. Azuran nobles bowed respectfully, some with tears in their eyes. Mira stepped back from the dais, shaken but proud. She had not meant to propose marriage, yet somehow she had offered something deeper: trust and hope. As the crowd began to disperse, Mira caught the queen's gaze once more. A hint of warmth shone there. Mira took a steady breath. She knew that the real work had just begun. Together, they would face new challenges. But for now, in that moment of unexpected promise, two worlds had found common ground. Commander Mira Hale returned to the embassy quarters with her closest advisors. The corridors were quiet after the ceremony, but Mira's mind raced. In the polished meeting room, human diplomats sat in tense circles. Across from them, Azuran liaisons in flowing robes spoke in low tones. Everyone tried to understand the weight of what had happened. Lieutenant Aaron Kim spoke first. "Commander," he said, "we need to explain to Earth what this proposal means. Our people will expect a full report." Mira nodded. She looked at Ambassador Reyes, who rubbed his temples. "We also face political fallout here," Reyes said. "Some Azurans may see this as a threat to their royal lines." Mira folded her hands. "We did not plan this," she said. "But sometimes accidents can bring good. We must show respect and learn their ways." The room fell silent. Each face held worry, but also hope. At that moment, a soft chime sounded from the embassy's comm panel. An Azuran liaison, named Laura, stepped forward. She bowed deeply. "Queen Azura requests your presence in the royal garden at dusk," Laura said. "She wishes to speak with you alone." Mira felt her pulse quicken again. The garden was a private place for the queen. It could mean more than diplomacy. That evening, Mira walked through the palace grounds. Tall crystal trees towered overhead, their leaves tinkling like gentle wind chimes. Pools of clear water reflected a violet sky. Strange flowers glowed faintly, filling the air with soft scents. Mira drew in a calm breath. Here, surrounded by beauty, she felt her earlier fear fade. Ahead, Queen Azura stood by a marble fountain. Her silver robes caught the light, and her dark hair fell in a shining wave. She turned and offered a simple nod. "Commander Hale," she said, "thank you for coming." Her voice was kind. Mira bowed her head. "Your Majesty," she replied. "I am honored." She took a steady step forward. The queen motioned toward a stone bench by the water's edge. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the fountain's soft song. Then Azura spoke. "Your proposal surprised us all," she said. "But it also brought hope. Many here fear war. Your gesture shows us peace is possible." Mira looked at the water. "I only meant friendship," she said. "If my touch can bring trust between our worlds, then I accept that fate." She met the queen's gaze. "I will learn your culture and share ours in return." Azura smiled. "You are brave, Commander. You chose mercy over power. That choice matters. The queen reached out and gently brushed a fallen petal from Mira's shoulder. It was a small act, but it felt warm. Back in the embassy, news of their meeting spread quickly. Both human and Azuran staff felt a shift in the air. In the Grand Hall of Tomorrow, plans for joint councils and shared technology began to form. Mira knew that many challenges remained, but as she left the garden, she carried with her a glimmer of something new. The first true step toward unity between two very different worlds. Commander Mira Hale woke early the next morning. The pale light of Azura Prime's twin suns filtered through her quarters. She dressed in a simple uniform and joined her team in the embassy's common room. Today, she would meet Azuran scholars and learn more about their world. Azuran teacher Solon greeted them with a gentle bow. He led the humans through long corridors lined with floating lanterns. Our people value knowledge, Solon explained. We guard our history in crystal libraries. He pushed open great doors, revealing shelves of glowing books. Mira reached out and felt the smooth surface of a tome. Each book seemed alive with soft light. Solon guided Mira to a reading table. He presented a volume on Azura's ancient laws. Read these rules, he said. Understanding our ways will help you avoid mistakes. Mira nodded. She opened the book and studied the simple symbols and clear translations. She saw how respect and honor shaped Azuran life. She felt grateful for the chance to learn. Next, Solon brought the group to a hall of crafts. Azuran artisans shaped metal and stone with precise tools. Mira watched as a sculptor carved a small crystal bird with delicate wings. Art is our gift to the universe, the sculptor said. He handed Mira a tiny bird. Its wings caught the sun's rays. Mira held it carefully. She thought of Earth's own artists, making beauty from simple clay. She realized how art could build bridges between worlds. At midday, the human cooks shared Earth food in the embassy dining room. Mira offered Azuran guests small plates of rice and roasted vegetables. Some nobles tried the unfamiliar spices and smiled. One child of the court laughed as he tasted sweet fruit from Earth. Mira felt a warm glow. Food was a language everyone understood. After lunch, Meyer led the delegates on a tour of the city. They walked past sky-high gardens where alien flowers bloomed in soft pinks and blues. Azuran children played by crystal fountains, their laughter echoing off stone walls. Citizens paused to watch the humans pass. Some bowed politely. Others waved in shy greeting. Mira waved back. She realized how much the people of Azura Prime cared about peace. As the sun began to set, Solon invited Mira to a demonstration of Azuran dance. Elegant dancers moved in slow patterns, their robes flowing like liquid moonlight. Music rose in gentle waves, played on stringed instruments that shimmered. Mira watched, entranced by the harmony of sound and motion. When the dance ended, the dancers offered a simple lesson. Mira joined, copying their steps. She felt clumsy at first, but the dancers laughed kindly and guided her. Mira found joy in the rhythm. That evening, Mira sat by a window overlooking the city lights. She held the crystal bird close and thought of her home world. She felt a growing connection to Azura Prime. She knew she still had much to learn, but each small step brought her closer to understanding. Tomorrow, she would prepare for the duty that lay ahead, a trial that would test her courage and shape the future of both their peoples. For now, she watched the lanterns glow like stars, and she felt hope bloom in her heart. Commander Mira Hale rose before dawn and made her way to the training grounds. The sky was still dark, but torches lit the path. Today she would learn the rules of the trial. She carried nothing but her resolve. In the courtyard, Master Raylan stood waiting. He was Azura's finest warrior. His armor gleamed even in the faint light. He bowed once and spoke in calm tones. "Commander, today you learn our duel code. This contest tests heart, not strength." Mira nodded and bowed in return. She listened closely as Master Raylan explained. The duel used wooden staves, not blades. A single strike to the shield counted as a point. Both sides wore light armor. No one could aim to harm. The goal was to show courage, skill, and kindness. Master Raylan led Mira to the armory. Inside, rows of wooden staves and round shields hung on crystal racks. He handed Mira a staff carved with simple patterns. Mira felt its weight. It was lighter than she expected. She picked up a round shield and strapped it on. They stepped into the open yard. The ground was smooth stone. Mira raised her staff in a guard stance. Master Raylan mirrored her with ease. "Keep your feet steady," he said. "Breathe slow. Watch your opponent." They began with practice swings. Mira moved carefully. At first, her strikes were off balance. She stumbled when she lunged forward. Master Raylan called out gentle corrections. "Bend the knees. Use your hips." Mira nodded and tried again. Hour by hour, Mira learned to move with grace. She learned to block, strike, and hold her ground. At one point, a heavy training dummy fell toward Master Raylan. Without thought, Mira dashed forward and pushed the dummy aside. The trainer smiled and bowed. "You have quick heart," he said. In the midday sun, they rested under a tall crystal tree. Master Raylan offered Mira a cup of cool water. She drank gratefully. He spoke of past champions who showed mercy by lowering their staff when their foe fell. "That mercy is true courage," he said. Mira thought of the Queen's words. Choose mercy over power. She felt her own courage grow. After rest, they returned to sparring. Mira tried a new move, using her human agility to dodge and counter. Master Raylan blocked a strike, but he nodded in approval. As the sun dipped low, Master Raylan lowered his staff. Mira did the same. They stood facing each other in respect. "You are ready," he said. Mira felt a thrill. She bowed deeply. "Thank you, Master," she said. That night, Mira returned to her quarters and laid out her staff and shield. She thought of tomorrow's trial and felt calm. She had learned the code and trained her body and mind. She knew the trial would be hard, but she also knew she carried more than her own strength. She carried respect for Azuran ways and the hope of two worlds. With that thought, she closed her eyes and prepared for the dawn of her greatest test. Commander Mira Hale stepped into the great arena at dawn. The sky was pale gold, and twin suns cast long shadows across the stone floor. A hush fell over the crowd of humans and Azurans. Torches burned along the walls, and soft chants rose like wind in the trees. Mira carried her wooden staff and round shield. She felt her heart race, but held her head high. Across the arena stood her opponent, Captain Thorin, Ashura's champion. He wore light armor etched with ancient symbols. His staff was taller than Mira's, and his stance was firm. When he saw Mira, he bowed once with respect. Mira bowed back. The Queen sat on a raised platform, her face calm and watchful. This trial would decide if Earth's envoy honored Azuran code. A horn sounded, a clear note that rolled like thunder. Mira and Thorin lifted their staves. They circled each other, boots scraping the stone floor. Mira kept her guard tight, watching for Thorin's moves. He struck first, a fast swing aimed at her shield. She blocked with a steady arm. The clash rang out, and the crowd leaned in. They traded blows in a dance of wood and will. Thorin's swings were strong, but Mira's speed helped her dodge. She stepped low, then rose to tap his shield. He staggered but kept balance. Mira pressed forward, using her training. She lunged, staff raised, but Thorin twisted aside. Sparks of crystal flew when wood hit stone. Each strike tested their strength and spirit. Midway through the match, Thorin feinted to the left and struck toward Mira's side. She turned just in time, but her shield flew from her arm and landed with a thud. Thorin paused, staff ready for the winning blow. Mira's breath caught. The crowd held its breath too. She had only to step back and accept defeat, or show mercy in a way no human had yet done. Mira straightened and put her empty hands on her hips. She met Thorin's eyes. Then she stepped forward and offered her hand, palm open, to help him finish the contest with honor. Thorin lowered his staff and took her hand. A cheer arose from the audience. Queen Azura's lips curved in a soft smile. Mira and Thorin bowed to each other and then to the queen. The trial was over. In Azuran code, mercy proved true courage. Humans and Azurans alike nodded in approval. Mira retrieved her shield, and Thorin patted her shoulder. She felt pride bloom in her chest. Back at the embassy, diplomats applauded her choice. They spoke in low voices about what mercy could do for future peace. Mira held her staff by the door and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of Earth's hopes and Azura's trust. The trial had shown that two worlds could share respect and care. Tomorrow would bring new tests, but for now, Mira knew she had earned her place in history. Commander Mira Hale stood in the council chamber with Queen Azura and their closest advisors. Sunlight streamed through the crystal windows, casting soft rainbows on the floor. Humans and Azurans sat at a long table carved from white stone. Each side had maps, tablets, and glowing crystals before them. Queen Azura tapped the table gently. "We must write our first alliance treaty," she said. Her voice was calm and sure. Mira nodded. She pressed a button on her tablet, and a hologram of Earth's flag appeared next to Azura Prime's symbol. The room grew quiet as everyone admired the display. Ambassador Reyes spoke first. "This treaty will bind our peoples in peace," he said. "We pledge to share knowledge and defend each other." He pointed to the text on his screen. "We should start with simple terms: open trade, joint research, and mutual security." Azuran scholar Lore added, "And we should include cultural exchange. Our children must learn each other's ways." Mira agreed. "We can send Earth teachers to Azura Prime," she said, "and ask your scholars to visit our universities." The room buzzed with soft chatter as advisors made notes and nodded in agreement. The treaty took shape, line by line. After 2 hours, they paused for a break. Azuran aides served cool blue tea from glass vials. The taste was light and sweet. Mira sipped and smiled. She felt hope in every breath. Around her, humans tasted crystal fruits gifted by Azurans. The court child from Part 4 laughed as he bit into a glowing berry. Mira joined his laughter and felt the tension ease. Returning to the table, they added articles on technology sharing. Human engineers offered to help improve Azuran starships. Azuran artisans promised to teach humans how to craft strong crystal armor. Each idea brought smiles and soft approval. Finally, after 4 hours of talk, the treaty draft lay complete. Queen Azura rose from her seat. Mira stood as well. The queen held a polished quill made of metal and crystal. Mira held a simple pen from Earth. They dipped their tools in ink. Side by side, they signed the document. The crowd erupted in gentle applause. Humans cheered quietly, and Azurans bowed in respect. That evening, a small celebration took place under the palace's glass dome. Lanterns floated above a marble dance floor. Musicians played gentle tunes on stringed instruments. Mira danced once with Queen Azura's cousin, a noble named Seren. Her steps were careful, but she laughed when she misstepped. Siren guided her kindly, and they finished in a bow. As the music faded, a messenger hurried in. His uniform was marked with Azura's starboard emblem. He knelt before the queen. "Your Majesty, we have detected an unknown fleet approaching our system," he said. His voice shook slightly. The lanterns dimmed as everyone turned to him. Queen Azura's face grew serious. Mira felt a thrill of fear and purpose. Peace might not last if danger arrived. But she also felt strength. She had friends here now. She would stand with them. The queen rose and looked at Mira. "Tomorrow, we prepare our fleets," she said. "Will you help us lead the defense?" Mira nodded, her heart steady. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will stand by your side." In that moment, two worlds held hands in unity once more, ready to face whatever came next. Commander Mira Hale woke before dawn. The sky was pale and quiet, but tension filled the air. She walked to the war room, where Azuran officers and human diplomats gathered around glowing holomaps. Twin suns would rise soon, and the enemy fleet would arrive before midday. Azuran Admiral Vesh stood by the central map. His armor bore starboard symbols. He pointed to red blips moving closer to Azura Prime. "They are fast," he said. "We must act now." Mira stepped forward. She touched a blip and enlarged it. "These ships match Earth's old scout designs," she said. "They may be mercenaries hired against us." Vesh nodded. "Then we use both fleets," he said. "Humans and Azurans, side by side." The room fell silent as everyone understood. Plans formed quickly. Human pilots would join Azuran squadrons. Ground forces would guard the crystal walls. Engineers prepared defenses and shields. Mira spoke to the human delegates. "We have trained together. Trust our allies." They clenched their fists and nodded. Across the room, Azuran soldiers tuned their weapons. Children from the court watched from a safe balcony. They clutched each other's hands, eyes wide. Outside, the horizon glowed as the fleet appeared. Dark shapes moved among stars and flames. Warning sirens echoed. Mira and Vesh hurried to the command deck. Through thick windows, they saw ships raining energy bolts at the outer shields. Sparks flew across the sky. On the bridge, human pilots climbed into their fighters. Azuran warriors boarded sleek ships with crystal wings. Engines roared, filling the bay with light and sound. Mira watched from above, her heart pounding. "Launch fighters," she ordered softly. "Form 2 wing groups. Protect the capital ships." Torpedoes gleamed on racks below. Techs nodded and hit controls. Doors slid open, and the fighters shot into space like comets. Mira turned to Vesh. "Shall I join the battle?" she asked. He gave a firm nod. "Lead the human squadron," he said. "Our warriors are with you." She bowed and followed the pilot's walkway to her fighter. Inside the cockpit, Mira strapped in. Simple controls felt familiar from training. She breathed in and out, steadying her nerves. The canopy opened, and she soared into the battle. Stars streaked by as enemy ships loomed. Mira stayed with her squadron, weaving between blasts. She targeted a ship closing on an Azuran cruiser. She fired a precise shot, hitting its engine. The ship spun away and exploded in silence. Behind her, wingmates cheered on comms. "Nice shot, Hale," one voice called. Mira smiled. She felt the bond between pilots. Together, they turned the tide. Below, ground troops held the crystal walls. Azuran shields flickered but stayed strong. Human engineers repaired damage quickly. Soldiers from both worlds worked without fear. High above, Queen Azura watched from an observation deck. She whispered to her guards, "They fight as one." Mira caught a signal from the Queen's ship, a wave of thanks. As midday neared, enemy forces began to retreat. Their ships limped away under combined fire. Mira and her squadron chased them until the last warship fled. Back at the command deck, Vesh clapped Mira's shoulder. "You have our gratitude," he said. Mira unstrapped and bowed. "We fought together," she replied, "and we will continue together." In that moment, humans and Azurans knew their alliance was stronger than any threat. The fleet's shadow passed, and the sky of Azura Prime shone bright once more. Commander Mira Hale walked through the palace gates as the sun set over Azura Prime. The air smelled of fresh rain and victory. Citizens lined the streets, cheering for both human and Azuran heroes. Many held small lanterns, their soft light dancing in the dusk. Mira smiled and waved, feeling warmth in her heart. She reached the royal courtyard, where Queen Azura and her court awaited. Statues of ancient rulers stood along the walls, their stone eyes watching the celebration. A raised platform held 2 thrones, one for the queen, and one now reserved for Mira. When Mira stepped up, the crowd fell into respectful silence. Queen Azura stood beside her. "Tonight, we honor bravery," Azura announced, "and we honor unity." She gestured to Mira. Commander Hale led our forces with courage and mercy. The crowd cheered, voices echoing like rolling thunder. Mira bowed her head. "Your Majesty, it was our honor," she said. "Humans and Asurans fought side by side. We share this victory." The Queen smiled and placed a simple silver circlet on Mira's brow. The circlet bore a crystal starbird, symbol of Azura Prime. Mira's eyes shone with surprise and gratitude. Across the courtyard, music began again. Drummers and string players filled the air with gentle rhythms. Azuran dancers in flowing robes invited human guests to join. Mira took a breath and accepted the outstretched hand of an Azuran noble. Together, they moved in time to the beat. Mira felt at ease as her steps matched the dancers. Nearby, human engineers demonstrated a small device that combined Earth and Azuran technology. It hummed softly and projected images of both worlds. Children pressed their faces to the display, eyes wide. Mira watched them and felt hope for the future. After the dance, Azuran chefs brought out a special feast. Tables groaned under plates of crystal fruits, spiced meats, and sweet pastries. Mira tasted a glossy berry that burst with flavor. She laughed when a court child offered her a pastry shaped like a star. The Queen's advisors toasted together, clinking glass cups. As the feast ended, Mira stepped aside with Ambassador Reyes. He placed a hand on her arm. "You have done well," he said softly. "You honored our mission." Mira nodded, fatigue settling in her bones. "I could not have done it alone," she replied. "Their trust made me strong." Across the courtyard, Queen Azura called for a final moment of peace. She raised her voice, and the musicians fell silent. "Tomorrow, we begin a new chapter," she said. "We will build schools, share art, and explore the stars together." She paused, looking at Mira. "Will you stand with us, Commander?" Mira stepped forward. "Yes, Your Majesty," she said, voice clear in the night air. "Together, we will shape our shared future." The Queen reached for Mira's hand. Their joined hands shone in torchlight, a symbol of two worlds united. The crowd erupted in cheers once more, but this time their voices carried the promise of hope and lasting friendship. Under the twin moons of Azura Prime, two champions stood side by side, ready to lead their peoples into a brighter tomorrow. Commander Mira Hale awoke to the gentle hum of the palace's heart crystal. Rays of pale light filtered through her window, soft and warm. Today was her last full day as Earth's envoy to Azura Prime. She dressed in her best uniform and carried her small crystal bird gift from Part 4 as a reminder of her journey. In the council chamber, humans and Azurans gathered once more. The treaty was signed, the fleet defended, and celebrations held. Now, work began to build the future. Queen Azura stood at the head of the table, her silver robes flowing like morning mist. Mira took her place beside the Queen. "We have much to do," Azura said. "Let today mark our first day of cooperation." She looked at Mira. "Your people will help us with our schools, and we will share our healing crystals." Mira smiled. She tapped her tablet, and a hologram of a crystal school designed by Azuran architects and Earth engineers appeared. Soft gasps filled the chamber. Over the next hours, committees formed. Human teachers prepared lesson plans for crystal science and Earth history. Azuran healers taught human doctors how to use healing crystals to speed recovery. Engineers from both worlds sketched starship designs combining crystal wings with human engines. Each plan was simple, clear, and hopeful. At midday, Azuran children gathered under the crystal trees in the palace garden. Human and Azuran teachers stood among them. Mira walked through the rows of small faces. She knelt beside a violet-skinned child and handed her a small earth book. The child's eyes lit up. Mira felt her heart swell. Nearby, Azuran parents watched with pride. One mother, tears in her eyes, thanked Mira in soft tones. "You brought light to our kingdom," she said. Mira bowed. "Your people welcomed us," she replied. "Together, we will shine brighter." That afternoon, Queen Ashura invited Mira to walk the palace balconies. They looked out over the city, where domes of crystal and steel reflected sunlight. Distant farms filled the horizon with green fields of growing crops. Mira spoke first. "When I came here, I carried hopes for peace," she said. "Now I carry dreams of friendship and growth." Ashura placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. "You made that dream real," she said. "Your courage and kindness changed our world." She paused and gestured to the sky. A small squadron of joint human Azuran ships glided over the city in formation. The ships left trails of soft light, painting the air with hope. As evening fell, a final banquet was held in Mira's honor. Long tables held dishes from both worlds. Laughter and gentle music filled the hall. Queen Ashura rose and raised her glass. "To Commander Mira hail," she toasted. "May her spirit guide our alliance forever." Glasses clinked, and voices echoed the wish. Mira stood and spoke. "I came here as a representative of Earth," she said. "I leave as a friend of Ashura Prime. Together, we will explore the stars, learn from each other, and keep peace alive." The crowd cheered, and Mira's eyes shone. Later, Mira packed her belongings. She placed the crystal bird and the treaty scroll into her case. The queen's circlet rested atop the pile. Mira paused, touching each item. She remembered the accidental proposal, the trial, the battle, and the treaties. Each moment had led to this new dawn. At the starport, Mira embraced Queen Ashura. "Thank you for your friendship," Mira said. Ashura smiled and murmured, "Our bond is unbroken." They stepped back. Mira turned to her ship, heart full. As the engines roared to life, Commander Mira Hale looked back at the glowing palace. She whispered, "Until we meet again." The starship lifted off, carrying Earth's hope into the stars, and leaving behind a promise that two worlds would never be the same.